Welcome to LUV Fitness Studios podcast, live from Manchester, UK, speaking to entrepreneurs in the fitness, health and well-being industry, sharing stories about the real-life challenges and hustle. Now, over to your host, Nick Phillips.
Okay, welcome to podcast number 5 with Nick Phillips, and we're going international today. We have got Coach Jay all the way over from Canada. Hi Jay, how's it going?
Not bad, Nick. How about yourself?
I'm really good. Thanks for taking up the time to speak to us today on LUV Fitness Studios podcast. So we always like to start these podcasts by starting off right at the beginning, where you sort of grew up, how your childhood was like. Tell us your story, basically, Jay.
Oh man, oh, now you're taking it way back. If my memory is good, hopefully my memory is good. No, I grew up in Toronto. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I grew up in the downtown, roughly the downtown area, and from the ages of I guess birth until I was 9. I lived there in Toronto, in an area called Jane and Finch. Um, Went to a school called Fir Grove, and at the age of 9, that summer, my parents decided to move north of the city.
Yeah.
I can tell you, north of the city, when they moved me, it was like moving to farmland. That was north of the city.
Wow.
It's about 30 minutes, but going 30 minutes north, it was literally like farmland. It was so foreign to me. I remember it was just our area, so our complex, our houses, and farmland, grass everywhere. It wasn't, anything like it looks now. It's completely different what it looks like now.
Wow.
And I remember being starting grade 5. And when I started grade 5, I believe it's middle school for you guys. I believe that's what you guys call it, middle school. I had a hard time, Nick. I had a really, really hard time adjusting. All my friends were not with me anymore. I was the new kid at the school, and you're trying to adjust. And at the time, when you're going into a new school, you have to take a certain amount of tests just to see what level you were at. And I remember having to take a test and then having to be put into a special class. And yeah, and at the time, I didn't know why. I didn't know what was happening. My all they said is, and I'm sure they probably told my parents, my reading and my writing skills were not up to par, and I was below grade level. And I'd never forget meeting my grade 5, and I talk about him all the time, Nick. No matter where I go, who I meet, I talk about my grade 5 special ed teacher, Mr. Marty Malik. Nick, I could tell you the stuff he instilled in me in grade 5 at the age of 43, I still use to today. It's part of my DNA. It's part of my genetic makeup. Sometimes we don't know, why certain things are said to us, but they are said to us. And for whatever reason, he saw me in the class and he said, if you want to get yourself out of this class, meaning you don't ever want to be labeled as a special ed student, or you don't want to have to get extra help and stuff like that, you got to be willing to outwork everybody you come around every day of your life. And Nick, I took him seriously.
I love that.
And
That-
I really, I worked my tail off, and I struggled. I mean, it doesn't come easy. Life is not easy, right? And think about being, you're only 10 at that time. And even at 43, I still struggle with certain things. I get on my Instagram and I tell people I'm not the best writer. I try to keep it simple. I'm not the best reader, but I read the Bible every day to practice. Um, so, when he told me that, I was just willing to work. And Nick, I got to work, and I worked and I worked and I worked. And I was a special ed student up until grade 10, and then grade 11, 12, and then into college. I didn't need to get as much help. I still needed the help, but not as much because I continued to work. And I've just lived that kind of life. I never give up attitude, right? Our saying, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm sure you're going to ask about how the whole
100%. 100%. I love that. I love that. So when back when you were 10, what did you have to work so hard at? Was it studies? Was it sports? What was it? Was it?
Yeah, it was a studying. I mean, my brain just didn't think normal. I the way I retained information, um, just wasn't like, what a so-called quote unquote a regular person would hear and retain information. And for me, that's taken a long time, Nick, a long time um, to accept. Now I openly and honestly talk about being an adult with ADHD. It's been about 5 years ago or 4 years now that I went to get tested for ADHD, and I went to a great doctor here locally. He's world renowned, Dr. David Teplin, and it was about a 3 hour test. And at the end of the test, he goes, "Well, I'm pretty sure you know what this result's going to be." And we just laughed about it. And I said, "Yeah." And at the time, I was dating someone, and he called her in, and he said, "Listen, this could end two ways. It's either you're going to stick it out with Jay, or it's not going to work, because it takes a particular style of person to understand an adult that has ADHD and how to navigate them and how to understand them and how to control their outburst or their your impulsiveness, right? And sometimes that's in a fiery way, um, it could be, wanting to teach 8 classes in a row, right? And just go at it. But realistically, you should be only teaching 5 because the other 3 you really need a rest.
Yeah.
But my brain doesn't work like that. And after talking to David Teplin, one of the things he said to me, Nick, was he is amazed, absolutely. And no, you're talking about a world-known doctor for dealing with kids, adults, adolescents, people that from high executives to people who are just wanting to know, like myself. He says, I've never come across, and when he said this, it really resonated. He said, I am completely amazed how you've taken personal training, group training, and made it a business and stayed on track with the results that you have. You're the unicorn.
Yeah.
I mean, no one was using that term, and that's become a modern term now. But at the time when he said it, he said, "You're an anomaly, right?" It just and I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. I'm saying that because anybody can do it. You, if it wasn't for Mr. Malik saying, "Jay, you just got to be willing to outwork everybody else." See, I got fixated on that word. Outwork everybody else. Outwork them. Outwork them. Outwork them. When you do 2 hours, I'm going to do 8. When you do 3 hours, I'm going to do 20 straight.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
And for me, right or wrong, that it's going to take a particular style of person to understand how to navigate me that way. And good and bad. I've had my share of bad relationships, bad friendships, and we all do, right? That's here nor there. But I look at it as now being being older, being a parent. You look at that now and you think, okay, how can I be better? What can I do every day to be better? If it's, getting on and getting disciplined, if it's kicking some of the bad habits, if it's getting the help you need, whatever it is, you got to start. And so for me, I just, training has always been one of those things I've always gravitated to. Even being a kid, I loved working out. I loved training. I play, as you guys call it, I played football for, yeah, for many, many years, Nick. I mean, to the point my dad was sad when I left soccer. He was sad. I started as defense. I moved to midfield. Midfield was my favorite position to play because I get to play both offense, defense. And then I ended my career left wing, and he was sad. I would say if there was any sport that I was probably really good at, probably the best at, soccer was one of them. I mean, basketball, I just love basketball.
Yeah.
I'm a basketball guy.
Yeah.
But when it came to running the field, I'll tell you,
Soccer.
who would have known, right? Like you look back, we all say that we're professional athletes, but just the discipline of getting up early in the morning, doing your keep ups, doing your footwork, working on your speed, working on your body. Like it's a whole different game now, but even back then, just the simple things, right?
Yeah, 100%. Was it big over in Canada, soccer, football?
You know, it amongst, I would say amongst um, the European culture, um, because we have, I mean, Canada is a melting pot. I mean, we have people from all around the world, all 7 continents. Like it's amazing to be, and especially Toronto in particular. So it's amazing to see that. I think it has grown astronomically just because we have our own MLS team here now. Over the last year, and we've won a championship or two. So it's super important that the young kids coming up have an opportunity. We didn't have that opportunity growing up. We looked up, as you know, to the Manchester United and
I love that. Yeah.
right? Like, and it's funny because I know we had previously talked on IG Live, and you showed me the stadium.
That's correct.
My old soccer team, and shout out to them, Glen Shield Soccer Club, was black and red, and I just think it was, it's one of those things where when you get around a soccer club's the same color or red and white, whatever the case may be, you just gravitate to them. And something about I don't know what it was. I mean, when it comes to European, I like AC Milan, but something about Manchester United. I don't know what it was, Nick. I'm telling you, I have no idea. But something about Man U just it got me fired up. It just got me fired up, and like I said, it's sports in general gets me fired up. I watch everything. I don't care if it's ping pong, bowling, darts, soccer, football, or American football, or basketball, hockey. Like I watch it all because I'm a sports fan.
Yes, exactly. So what was next then? So you went through school. You go to
Yeah.
university. You went to.
Okay, so we went to. First we got to take that step to high school. So I meet Mr. Malik, and I always respect the teachers that helped me along the way. So I leave grade school and I enter high school, and I met Mr. Mike Foster in grade 10, Nick, and I'll tell you, he's a big influence on discipline and work ethic, free throws, and getting your mind right for the game and putting yourself in a position to succeed in life, I guess, and you know, having him in my life was huge, just from the discipline standpoint, right? And having to do the work every day, having to shoot your free throws, having to do the runs, having to remember plays. I was a guy that I remembered every play we ever ran from everybody else's position, including my own. Yeah, that's the kind of I mean, even to if somebody were to from my old high school say, "Hey, how was this play ran?" From all I know it like it's nobody's business. I could tell you exactly how that play was ran. For whatever reason, that's how my brain worked, right? So, um, he was a big influence throughout high school on just doing the work, um, and I wasn't an A student, I wasn't, let's be realistic here. Did I get A's? Sure. Was it in subjects I liked? Sure. But for the most part, I was a C, D student, and right or wrong, I mean, you got to put into work. Not everybody brain thinks the way it does to get A students. I give it up for kids that get A's and straight A's, let alone make honor roll. I mean, that's a big fet as well when you make the honor roll and for your school and stuff. But it was just not me. It wasn't the way my brain thought, right? So high school, I struggled. I mean, I struggled throughout all schools, but I wasn't I wasn't willing to give up, right? And then leaving um, high school, I took a year off, Nick. Grade 9, when I was 12, let's backtrack. When I was 12, I went to California on a trip.
Okay.
with my mom, my aunt, my uncle, my cousin at the time. We went to San Diego,
Beautiful place.
and one of my favorites.
My favorite.
And
Yep.
and and at the time, I fell in love with this place. And I told myself from 12 until I guess end of high school, I will go to California. I will go and play basketball. I will go. I told myself every day, every day, every day. And I took a year off, Nick, and um, I went and I lived with my aunt and uncle in San Diego for about 8 months. And I went to local. I saved up a lot of money that last year to pay for my own way and stuff like that. And I went and I lived with them. And I found basketball games and stuff like that along the way. And I never forget dribbling. I'm heading home now and I'm dribbling and um, I meet this gentleman, Mr. May, and he's an assistant coach at LA Valley College. And he's like, "Do you play?" And I said, "Yeah." And I'll never forget. He said, "Why don't you try out? There's these Saturday runs at the college and in Los Angeles." And I never forget getting on a Greyhound, and we had cousins in LA, and I took the Greyhound and I stayed with my cousin Amos. And he was like, "Where's the school?" And I told him, and I would never forget him dropping me off there and sitting on the sideline and going and playing and stuff like that. And I'm sure these guys were way better than I was. I mean, I wasn't. I just wanted to play. I just wanted to play. So I went as a walk on, and um, shout out to LA Valley College because it was a great experience, Nick. Um, Rough at times, just being a foreign student and stuff like that. But having the opportunity to go to college and play basketball at that level, um, I wouldn't trade it because it taught me a lot about life. It taught me a lot about survival. It taught a lot about friendship and love and relationships and grinding it out. As you know, like you every day is an everyday grind. And after spending quite a few years there, I was like, maybe it's time to go home. Here I am from 12 until like 18, every day
Wow.
telling myself I'm going to go to
Yeah.
California, go to California, go to California, go to California. And then after spending 3, 4 years there, I said, maybe it's time to go home. And I never forget, I was dating a girl at the time, and I'm like, I don't think I want to stay here and raise a family. And she respected that. She respected that, and she understood that. And I decided to come back. And I came back to Toronto, and I said, what am I going to do now? Um, and in California, I met a gentleman, and he is probably the biggest reason why I'm a trainer right now, Nick. And I'm going to touch upon this a little bit. I met a gentleman named Dave Buchanan, Coach Dave, they called him. He ran the strength and conditioning facility at LA Valley College, and he took me in like I was one of his own. I always say he was like my dad away from home. I mean, he really took me in. He taught me about the gospel. He taught me about the Bible. He could recite because he said his mom taught him. And I was amazed what he was teaching me. And I'll never forget, Nick. There was one summer day. I mean, it was hot out there, but I remember it like I just remember everything going on, Nick, in the background. I remember there was a guy training a young girl way out in the field. Now we're on the practice field of the football team, and there was a guy way out in the by the parking lot. He had put up in his yellow Porsche. Never forget this. And he pulls out some dumbbells and he's training this girl out there. So I have that scene going on in the background. And Coach Dave at the time is training guys, 5 guys, for the NFL Combine. And I never forget him pulling me over because I was out there fascinated by, at that level, what are you doing? Like, what are you training and stuff? And he turns to me and he says, "Jay, the difference between the first guy and the last guy is going to be $10 million." dollars. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, to think about it, you could work your butt off and you're only going to get $1 million signing bonus. And the next guy is going to be a split second faster than you, and he's going to get 10 million. Like that blew me. It's not that part, Nick, that blew me away. It's his next statement when he looked dead at me, and I felt it in my body. He said, "Jay, you can do this just like I can, but your impact could be much greater." Man, Nick, it was like being anointed. It was like being anointed. And I knew right then and there, I said, you know what, I'm going to become a trainer. I'm going to take the courses. I'm going to do what I need to do. And I was always into, into phys ed and physical activity and stuff like that. I mean, look at my background, right? Like sports, being in sports. And I said, wow, like, can I really do this? So when I came back, I dove right in. I worked at couple local gyms. Got my certification in training and really started to.
What year we're talking here? Is this in 90s?
Okay, so I came back. That would be 2000 and oh man, let's say 2002, Nick. I came back.
Okay.
Yeah. Now remember, I've been in coaching my whole career since I was 18.
Yeah.
Right? 17, I got into coaching. So I was coaching basketball at a very young age, right? Throughout, I mean, you're making side money, you're working for the local community center, right? So when I say I have 20 years of experience in coaching, I have 20 years in coaching. Like, this is no joke, hours and hours. So, when I came back and I said to myself, man, like, what can I do? And I joined one of the biggest clubs here. And I just started and I put into work and I never forget, Nick, if there's anybody listening to this is a young trainer. I hope they never have to go through what I went through here, but I am so thankful I went through it. I never forget being they were called ambassadors at the time, and you would show members around. It's not the same department as the salespeople. It would be more like, hey, if somebody wanted to know how to use a piece of the equipment, you would show them, but you wouldn't be their trainer. You would just show them, and then you would sign up people every day.
Gym instructor. Yeah.
Yeah, to kind of just instruct them so they wouldn't hurt themselves.
Yeah.
So I had people every day. I never forget the manager at that time coming to me and saying, hey, come here for a sec. And there was a cable machine. Nick, I can go to the club today because I know where it is. I know exactly where that cable machine is. I know exactly what he said to me. He goes, see all this dirt here at the bottom? So there was dust bunnies at the bottom. He goes, do you mind cleaning all of that up? Now, here I am I'm like, I'm not the cleaning staff. But he says, listen, we got to make sure the club is always clean. So Nick, what I used to do is clean the equipment and I used to put all the weights away. And I never forget members saying, man, you are the only guy that ever does this. Like I would put the dumbbells, the plates back exactly where it would go. Now you're talking about maybe 8,000 square foot facility. And I used to have that place, like, people would come in and be like, man, like, this is crazy. I would buzz around. I'm telling you, my forearm strength came from putting those
1,000,000,000%. I'm shaking my head so much because I was exactly the same, Jay. When I got my first job in a gym, I took so much pride with making sure my workspace was spot on. And that's the thing with new personal trainers coming into the game now. I feel like they think it's all going to be getting paid loads of money, training all the sexy girls, sexy lads. It's not. You need to learn to clean because you're a cleaner, and then you need to learn how to be with people. But they're the golden nuggets, aren't they? That's where it's all at.
100%. So I remember him saying this to me, and he's like, cleaning. I'm like, why the heck am I cleaning? And so I continue to do that, Nick, and I do that, and I never forget two brothers. I wish I remember their names. I gotta find these. I know they own, at the time they owned a local pool company. And I never forget I think the older brother coming up to me and goes, we want you as our trainer. And I said, what? I'm like, why? They go, we've been watching you for 3 months. You come in here, you clean the place, you put the weights around, you spot people, you talk to everyone, you make everyone. They go, That's the kind of trainer we want that shows that you care. Nick, I'm like, they could have picked any trainers on. I mean, we had a serious roster. I wouldn't trade that roster of trainers for anybody. I mean, it was a phenomenal training roster. And I was like, all right. And I started with those two and I kept going. When I left that club, Nick, think about it. Here's the guy who was cleaning and putting dumbbells away. I went from that guy to having about 25 people at 2 times a week or more straight.
Yeah.
And when I left that club, Nick, I remember telling myself, I don't want anyone to tell me I couldn't do this on my own again. I gave all my clients away, every single one of them. Every single one of them, I gave them to other trainers, and I said, at that time, I just felt like I hit a cap.
1 billion%. I know the feeling.
Where I could have expanded and I wanted more for myself. And when I left there, I was just like, I don't want anybody to tell me I ever took it, people. And I started with no one. I actually took time off. I took 3 months off straight and just chilled. And I was still doing the coaching on the side. I was still doing basketball training on the side. And that was my thing. I was working for a basketball company. And I was still doing that. And I just said, you know what? I don't want anyone to ever say I couldn't do it on my own, or that you took clients, or nah, I'm good. I'll start at zero. That's why this journey is so fascinating, because I feel like at every pivotal point, I started back at zero. And as many times as a person gets knocked down, Nick, and anybody that's listening to this, and any young trainers, you got to want to stay in it for a long time. If you know that's right. Like, I love helping people. I think God put me on this planet to help a lot of people, and that's what I do. I say that every day, all day. But I just been through too much. Right? I go back to Mr. Malik. I just think outwork everybody every day of your life. Do what somebody is not willing to do. Right? It hurts. It's tiresome. Do I wish I could take a day off like the next person who's like, oh, I'm just gonna take a day off today. I wish I could. I get mad at myself when I want to take half an hour. I'm like, shit, I should be doing something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But my brain just doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. And everybody always thinks, well, you should do it, and it's the money, and the money. Man, listen, money comes and money goes. I've made a lot. I've made a lot of people a lot. And I'm still sitting here in a pandemic, and I'm by myself. Who am I with? Who's coming to save me? Nobody. But you know what? But Mr. Malik said, outwork everybody else that you come around.
So true, so true. And I can relate to so many of them stories, from coming all the way through as a personal trainer, starting with nothing, building yourself up to becoming one of the best trainers in a really thriving gym. And I feel like, same as you, I got to the stage where I'd done it, I'd finished there, I needed to do the next thing. So what was the next things, Coach? What happened after you?
So we go there, and we start on our own. Nick, I start with one person at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Cold dead of winter. I start with this one person at a local community center that a client of mine that I had trained his son at the time. He was like, "Listen, I'm part of this community center. You don't have anywhere to go. Why don't you just try here?" And Nick, I remember one person showing up, but I'll tell you, and I tell people this all the time, you're going to take a lot of no's, but the day someone tells you yes, man, that's going to change your life. And this young girl said, sure, Jay, let's go. And then she told somebody else, and then she told Nick. In the matter of 18, yeah, in about 18 months, maybe 12 to 18 months, I went from 1 to 25, 3 days a week. And that's the only reason I couldn't do it 5 days a week at the community center, they didn't have time for me. Right? So I'm doing group training. And Nick, what I mean, I had nothing. I had zero. Some people to now who are part of that training are still with me now. I actually taught them this morning and made a reference to that. They're still with me. And Nick, I had a smart car, kettlebells, couple dumbbells, some battling ropes, and that was it. And I was like, I got to make it work. This is why I always say trainers think you need all this stuff and all the glitz and glamour. Nah. If you got a
It's true.
if you got an 8 foot by 8 foot space and you got a pen or a pencil, you should make this feel like 50 pounds to that client if you use this.
Yes. Yes. 100%.
Right? So for me, it was just like, okay, how do I continue to grow this? How do I move this? And at the time, I was being sought out by another company. And I said, you know what? Let me entertain it. Man, I could go to 5 days a week. I could go to 6, maybe 7. So I entertained them. And here we go again. The only time slot we have for you is 6 a.m. And I'm like, oh, here we go again. 6 a.m. I'm like, okay. And I remember a guy I was training at the time, became a good friend, John, showed up. He was the only person in my class at 6 a.m. And I was a little discouraged at the time. And I go to the owners. I go, how about you just switch me to 8:30? And at the time, Nick, they laughed at me. They said nobody will want to train at 8:30 in the morning because of the area we're in. A lot of people needed to drop off their children around 8:30. That's why a lot of people like 9:30 classes. I gave them an hour to get there. They may have went home. And I said, no. Just give me 8:30. I'll make it work. And people laughed, like literally laughed at me. I said, just give me 8:30. I remember running my first 8:30 class. Okay, Nick? And 4 people showed up. I remember, I'm not going to disclose the name. I remember their names clear as day because I always talk about them on my lives and stuff. The 4 people. And I remember the next week running the same time and 8 people showed up.
Wow. Word of mouth. Word of mouth. Any marketing?
No marketing.
No marketing, just word of mouth.
I didn't say a
spread.
word.
Yeah.
Following week, 12 people showed up. The following week, 16. I'm not joking you. The following week, 20 people showed up. Now I'm in a space, Nick. I'm going to tell you. At the time, I was in a big room. I had to go down to a smaller room at the time. They said, listen, can you go into a smaller room? I said, sure. The room was about only maybe, Nick, 700 square feet. Maybe 700.
Which is small. Yeah.
Which is small.
Yeah.
Nick, I had 20 people in that room doing circuit training and 10 people on a wait list to try to get in. And I went from 1 day a week. I said, hey, give me a Monday, Wednesday. They gave me the Monday, Wednesday. I went from 2, so I got 20 and I got 10 people on the wait list on both of those classes. People trying to get into this class. I said, you know what? How about you guys give me the bigger room? And I'll just move. At the time, they had spin bikes in there. I'd move all the spin bikes. And I said, before the class ends, don't worry, I'll move all the spin bikes back. Nick, in the matter of, I think 13, 14 months, I went from, think about it, one class at 6 a.m., moving it to 8:30. I went from that one class to 22 classes a week on the class schedule. Just me.
Wow. Hard work.
And wait lists in every class. Not one word of advertising on myself. No billboards, no posters.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Word of mouth. So how did you manage everything then? So obviously you one man band. How did you manage the all the other stuff that you need to be on top of? Do you know what I mean? The back books, keeping yourself, creating new workouts. How did you do that? Was it literally just work?
Work. Yeah.
I had, once you're in that snowball, you're in the snowball. The snowball's not going to stop.
No.
And people want their workout. You're hearing about you. I became one of the hottest things in north of the city. I got articles that said best workout in the city, Coach J's workout, my fit circuit, best workout in the city. And people would show up. Nick, they were showing up for like 45 minutes away. They were trying to get to this class.
Yeah.
Right? People were coming from the United States when they were in town. They were hearing about my class. LA, New York, Chicago, didn't matter. People were trying to show up to this class.
What was social media around at this point? Was your face? No, nothing. So it was all word of mouth. Yeah.
That's what people, people who've been with me along this journey, they laugh at me now. They're like, Jay, you were so anti social media and now you're all over it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things. But, you know, at that time, 19 months later, after investing into the company wanted out. And here I am sitting there with all my investment and no way of getting my investment out of that company. And I had to do at that time I was just having my first child, and I had to really look at what the situation was. And I said, okay, we better go for it. And I went for it. So I'm having my first child and taking over a company. Nick, nobody sets you up for this. Who sets you up for this as a trainer? I'm a trainer who was cleaning equipment. No one came and said to you, hey Jay, here's the things you need to do. Here are the books you need to read. Yeah, I was reading, but I've been reading John C. Maxwell for years on just personal development, but nobody was giving me books on business and finances and taking your money and learning how to 10x it or double it or putting it in real estate and stuff like
There's
that
none
now,
of that around.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There was none of that. So here I am starting this business. I had no clue what I was doing. None. And we take over. We have a good ride, Nick. We expand in 5 years. We open a second location, and then life hits again. You make some dumb choices. You make bad mistakes. You may have not hired the right people along the way, and things just went south. And we end up having to close that location for various reasons, and it was just hard. It was a really sad time. I was a very, very dark place. And, I have the studio I have now, and I'm trying to build it back. And then all of a sudden, COVID hits. Nick,
Crazy.
yeah, and I tell people along this journey, right? There's people. Some people sit back and they're like, "Man, Jay, you got everything going on." They have no idea, no clue. They can't even fathom.
That's incredible. That's incredible. That's incredible. That is incredible. It just shows that like the power of just flipping things and just that working so hard and how all that mindset. It's all down to mindset, isn't it, Jay? It's completely down to mindset. But no, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, Jay, we've run out of time. We've got classes we need to teach. But honestly, that is so. What an amazing story, and thank you so much for sharing that with me. I really do.
No worries, man. We'll have to catch up and do part 2 of this one day.
I think definitely. I think part 2's definitely got to be done. And you're coming over here. You're going to come and see us in the UK.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's happening.
For sure. I gotta come teach a class for you.
Yeah, brilliant. 100%. This is your dance floor. You need to come over here. Yeah. So let's organise that. I know we're all busy at the minute, but this will happen. So let's get it done. But honestly, Jay, the messages you're putting out there, the vibrations you're putting out on the earth is unbelievable. I'm so pleasured to say, call you a friend now. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you very much. Same here.
Like you always say, you're going to live to 200. I'm going to know you that.
I'm living to 200. Yeah. I'm going to know you a lot of time.
I love that, Jay. All right, listen, I'll catch up with you very soon. But thank you so much for coming on.
No worries, Nick. No worries.
Brilliant. All right, cheers, Jay.
Bye.